Attention all passengers. On this episode of the Xbox Passport, we're taking a journey to learn all about accessibility in gaming with the one and only Tara Voelker. Buckle your seatbelts, we're about to take off.
Welcome, travelers, to the Xbox Passport presented by Xbox Canada, the podcast all about the best value in gaming, Xbox Game Pass. I'm Steve Saylor, and joining me on this voyage is none other than my friend and yours from Girls on Games podcast, Leah Jewer. Hi, Leah. How you doing? I hear you got a puppy.
I did! So yeah, everything is going well. Gaming is great. I now have a gaming companion to sit on my lap again while I play. But yeah, if you hear any squeaks or rustles or me going, "No, Gibson, don't eat the wire," it's because he's up to no good. Right now he's asleep, so hopefully he stays that way.
As long as there's no expensive wires around you, then I think you should be okay.
Fingers crossed.
I mean, you already said what? You're already replacing a keyboard because of
baby.
Literally, the dog ate your homework on that one. But
yeah, let's not have him eat this podcast.
No, let's not. Speaking of, a little bit of housekeeping for y'all. If you missed any of the episodes, you can be able to catch up on listening on all excellent podcast platforms. I won't say iHeartRadio because one of us is one of the managers or heads of iHeartRadio Digital in Canada. But you could definitely subscribe to us in iHeartRadio or Apple Podcast, Spotify, whichever. You can also watch the video version on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Steve Saylor. We've got episodes about Redfall with Paris Lily. We've got Minecraft Legends. We also have an episode with our friend Naomi Kyle to listen/watch as well. There's a ton of content there. You can be able to check that out. But today we are very excited because today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Now, if you may not know what that is, it is basically the third Thursday in May, and it's a celebration of accessibility efforts pretty much across the world in web and digital and, on our side, gaming. And in the part of the gaming industry, Xbox obviously has a huge, they're a huge proponent of accessibility, and we thought, we should bring on one of the folks who is a big part of that within Xbox. And we have, I'm so excited because I get to have my friend in the show, the Xbox Game Studio Senior Accessibility Lead, Tara Voelker. Hi, Tara. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. And
This is great.
We get to hang out, and this time I'm not scaring you. Unlike last time we hung out and you got to play Alan Wake.
I was just getting over the trauma of that, so thanks again. Appreciate it for bringing
I just gotta bring it back up repeatedly and prepare you for Alan Wake 2. That
is true. For those who may not know, there was a series I did with Epic Game Store called Going In Blind, where Tara scared me to death. Scared me to death, having me play her favorite game, Alan Wake. And I still haven't touched the game ever since. That's how scared I was from it, which I will get back to at some point because, as you said, Alan Wake 2. But anyway, you can check that out on my YouTube channel if you want, whatever, self-promo. But anyway, Tara, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do? I know that's definitely, there's a lot to kind of go over, but just tell the audience who may not know who you are, what you are, what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the Xbox Game Studios Senior Accessibility Lead, which means I do a little bit of everything. Basically, I run the program that helps our game studios make and reach their accessibility goals. And it's education, it's design consults, it really is a little bit of everything, and I get to partner with our amazing teams in studios quality and user research under the program to really help make really great accessibility experiences. And then in the free time that I pretend I have, I also am the co-director of the Game Accessibility Conference with my buddy Ian Hamilton, which is a conference that we put on to educate people about game accessibility, and you can find all the talks on our YouTube channel for free.
Yeah, which is really great. It's an amazing resource. I definitely reference that in my own work as well. So if you ever wanted to sort of hear from the experts about accessibility. There's some really great ones, especially the one that you just had, where you talked about the accessibility, or not you specifically, but there was a talk about the accessibility in Deathloop. There was a great panel from those who like with chronic pain and cognitive accessibility, which was really cool. So yeah, there's plenty of. I think I'm in there somewhere in a few of those.
We talked about the official accessibility scale of does it make Steve Saylor cry? And then the follow-up was it a good or bad cry? That is the accessibility rating scale. I'm never going to be invited.
When that running joke is going to happen, it's fine.
Are we adding that to the podcast, Steve?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Ryan, our editor, or you can keep it. You can keep it. That's fine. No,
I mean as an official thing, as an official tracking thing that we're going to be doing now.
Whether or not that's yes. the scale,
the new threshold,
scale that makes
along
me cry
with any reviews we do. Yeah, is that the new threshold?
What have you done, Tara? What have you done? You infected this podcast.
I'm never going to be invited back.
No.
So I just want to say, remember, Steve, you personally asked for me. You did this to yourself.
I know. I did this. I did this to myself. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Well, I've got a bit of like an icebreaker question-ish. So I want to know. Gonna put you a little bit on the spot because we're friends. I figured this might be a fun little question. Why don't you tell us a little bit of a fun fact about yourself that I might not even know?
Ooh. Okay. So a fun fact about me is that while I was working on BioShock Infinite, I needed something that was not work. That title took over my entire life. So I became a paranormal tour guide on the USS Salem.
What?
No way! Really?
Yes. True story.
I'm dumbfounded. What? Okay, wow. No, elaborate. USS Salem? A boat?
Yeah, so it's a retired Navy cruiser.
Okay.
It was built to be used as a humanitarian aid ship. After it was retired, it's now permanently docked in the Quincy Harbor. Yes, notice I said Quincy for all of you people from Massachusetts. And it's a museum now, and reportedly haunted. And there are lots of different ghost stories that are told, and one of the ways that they raise money for the ship is having paranormal tours to keep the museum running. And so I was a paranormal tour guide on the boat.
Wow. I need to tell my best friend T that, because he does paranormal investigations on his Twitch and YouTube channel called Old Spirits Investigations. I need to tell him this because he would be very, very fascinated. And the fact that actually that wouldn't be too far for him to be able to go. I think he actually, I think he might have mentioned the USS Salem as one of the places he wanted to go, or that he wanted to check out. Oh, I need you to connect you two, because this is amazing. I had no idea. When did you do that?
I went 10 years ago.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Wow. Damn.
Yeah, so that was before we ever met. So I was looking for a fact that would have came up before we met. And I was like, oh, that's one. It's not game related, and you hadn't met me yet. So that's why I went with that one.
So it sounds like there's a trend. You're into like spooky paranormal stuff. Like that kind of is like where you lean on gameplay, what you like to play and things like that.
Oh, 100%. I love horror games. I love spooky games. I was lucky enough to give my favorite talk I've ever given in the history of talks on accessibility in horror games with two other accessibility leads who are massive horror fans as well. So like, yeah, anytime I can find like accessibility and horror together, it's like, mwah, chef's kiss.
Easy.
I love that. And actually, that talk is also on the GAConf YouTube channel as well. And it's if you ever wanted to know how to be able to make horror games accessible, that is the talk. Which, isn't it like? Didn't you tell me at one point, or like you said at one point, like the dream is to be able to make a horror game that is accessible as well?
Yeah, I think like one day I want to trick someone into giving me a bunch of money so I can be a studio head that focuses on accessible horror games.
Well, I mean, I guess we got to have that. We got to sit down and have a conversation with Matt Booty in order to be able to get you a studio to work on it.
Excuse me, Matt. I know I have no experience running a studio. Please give me money.
Please.
Give me money so I
Give me
can make this. You know what? You never know. I think that could actually happen. We need to make this a petition to make that happen, I think. Hashtag give Tara money.
I support this hashtag.
Yeah, I support that hashtag too. So obviously, like you work at Xbox as the senior accessibility lead. Can you tell us a little bit about what does that job entail within Xbox?
Yeah, there are a few different parts of my job. So the first is kind of working to help define what do we want accessible games to be at Xbox? Like, what are our goals? And then after we make that, how do we drive towards those goals? And then very boring business things, like how do we measure those goals? But for me, the really fun part is I get to work with individual studios to help organize educational workshops, get them invested in accessibility, help make introductions to gamers with disabilities so that they can get that direct feedback on their products, and kind of shepherding accessibility through. I'm a combination of a service and resource for basically game design, but then there's also technical help, referrals, and then a large part of my job is actually cultural and educational programs. Like, for me, it's really important that you create a culture of accessibility and disability inclusion, because that's how you wind up with accessible products. You have the culture where people just want to do it. So a lot of my job is actually creating that culture, making people wanting to do the work, and it's just so great. It's so rewarding. Because you get to see cool things like, you hosted a workshop where, deaf and hard of hearing players were talking about wanting content in their native language, and then you get to chug on it for a couple of years, and then out the end pops, Forza Horizon 5 with American and British Sign Language.
I love that. That's actually a really a great accessibility feature. For those who don't know, basically you can play Forza Horizon 5, and any of the cinematics has a ASL and BSL interpreter on screen that's basically interpreting the all the dialogue, and it's a really, really cool feature that I'm hoping to be able to see more in games, which is really, really neat. But I love that. That's kind of just a fun hey, that came from a workshop, which is pretty cool. So I do have another sort of icebreaker question that I think that could be a fun one to sort of ask. What was, if you can, I know you worked on quite a few games before you joined Xbox, but what was the first Xbox game that you have worked on?
The first Xbox game to ship on an Xbox console that I ever worked on was, I think it was Destroy All Humans 3 Path of Furon for the Xbox 360.
See, I understood some of those words individually, but together I don't know what that means.
Well, so there's the Destroy All Humans franchise, which is actually a great franchise.
Oh, Destroy All Humans! Oh, okay,
yeah.
Okay.
But just don't look past the first two. Just ignore the third one, the one that I worked on.
Why?
It's really bad.
Oh.
It's so bad. It was I can't say too much, but let's just say this was peak THQ as they were starting their layoffs that led to their demise.
I am now looking up to see if Destroy All Humans 3 is on Xbox Game Pass, because I think that's something
not.
that we can.
It's not. I don't even think that you can buy it anymore. Think you. Oh. I don't even know if you can get it digitally. I think you either already have a copy or you'll never experience it, because I think everyone was just no. Because again, it was a title published by THQ. THQ went under, and when all their assets are sold,
right.
Who would want to put that game back out there? No one.
Well,
Is there a physical version?
There is a physical version.
Okay, so if you can find the physical version somewhere.
But funny enough, and this blows my mind, when it pops up at places like GameStop, it's really expensive. And this is because the algorithm for which GameStop determines prices takes rarity into consideration. And so few people bought copies, there are so little in circulation. It's an expensive used 360 game.
Wow.
It's a collector's item.
Idea.
Yeah, no, it is. I do have, do I have it over here? Oh, I'm not going to be able to easily get it. But I have, like, my bobblehead from when I worked on the project still. Like, I have a bunch of, like, random things. Because, you know, when I first started working on it, I was like, oh my god, Destroy All Humans, what a great franchise! And then I was like, not like this.
What was your job on that?
I was a QA tester. Technically, the first thing I ever worked on was the demo for the game that never shipped, because it couldn't get past certification. But
wow.
But I was a tester, and it's actually really funny because John Knowles, who's the design director at Turn 10, he also worked on the project, but from like the other side. So that was just like a fun connection that we had, was that we all worked on this project that we wish we could forget.
And now you're back again in the same building, essentially. Wow. Oh, I had that. Wow, that's pretty cool. I need to now go look this up. I need to look up the why it was reviewed why it was so bad. But that's cool. All right. So before we get into, because we do have some questions about sort of obviously accessibility, but we want to be able to talk a little bit about, you know, we have a section in the show where we want to talk about what we are playing, and what, like, obviously without sort of, if you're not breaking any NDAs of what you're currently playing. Tara, what are some of the games that you're currently enjoying right now?
Well, right now I'm obsessed with Resident Evil 4, the remake, and I am going back through and doing my like third, fourth runs, etc. because I need to get those Chivos.
You need to get that S tier, don't you?
Exactly. Oh my god, I understand why on New Game Plus you can't get an S tier in the harder difficulties, but also it's so much easier to kill people when you have an infinite ammo rocket launcher. And so I don't think it's fair that they put that limitation on me.
It's inaccessible is what it is.
Exactly. Rude. It's rude.
Rude. Inaccessibly rude. Cool. Well, Leah, what have you been playing lately?
Well, alongside Redfall, I picked up via Game Pass Homestead Arcana. Are you familiar with that game? It recently released.
No, actually, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it came out tail end of April, and essentially it's like if you took a farming sim and like magic and a bit of a dungeon crawler and slammed them all together. So you are trying to battle back this mist, which is coming and like taking over the earth. It kind of has like a environmental sort of vibe to it too. Total like farming sim with this cat that kind of helps you along, and you have to go and battle back this mist, help with farming items, crafting is involved. There's a bit of a system as well for selling items, helping and responding to requests, learning the story of the land through letters and stuff coming from your family members and things like that. So yeah, I've been taking some time going through that game and enjoying bits and pieces of it. I do think it needs a little bit more content as I play through. I do find it a little bit empty in certain areas, but you know, that sometimes happens with the farming sims and stuff as you play through them, right? You realize that, especially if you play as many as I do, that mechanics are very easy to learn, so that, you know, because you know exactly what to anticipate and what to expect. So sometimes I look for something a little bit more deeper, but I do think this concept of kind of like adding in more of like a dungeon crawling aspect to it as you kind of go through different areas trying to clean out the toxicity of this mist definitely is an interesting and different mechanic from other farming sim games. So yeah, it definitely an interesting one to pick up on Game Pass if you have the chance or feel like that type of game.
That's cool. I'll have to definitely add that to the list of games I should check out on Game Pass. For me, I'm just like, it's simple. I was playing Redfall. I've also been playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor on my Xbox Series X, and I like definitely the Star Wars. I am into the Star Wars lately. You can't really see it. I don't know. You might be able to see it on camera in editing, but I have like now a BD1 Lego set that I have officially like finally built. So he's just permanently back there. It's also great for accessibility too, which is awesome. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't already, because it's a great game. All right, so I think it's a time, because it is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. We wanted to, like, in this theme, this episode is themed around accessibility. We have the expert here at Xbox to be able to talk about accessibility. So we kind of we're gonna have we have some questions for you, but also like this is gonna be kind of an interesting sort of way to go about it, because Leah has some questions, kind of like as someone who's not in the accessibility space. Because I mean, like, Tara and I we talk all the time, so we know a lot about a lot of this stuff. But I would love to be able to kind of have this sort of conversation where we get to learn about new things in accessibility. And so Leah, I love that you have some questions ready for Tara. This is gonna be great. Yeah,
because definitely, like, they're tools that have been now presented and coming out frequently with games and stuff that are, lead into that accessibility route. But like, I end up using them. Plus, there's so many people who come to us and ask questions, be it through what you and I do here, Steve, plus what I do on Girls on Games. So yeah, I definitely kind of want to get into some of the weeds that I'm sure Steve already knows the answer to. So Tara, as an able-bodied person, and I know that language can be fluid and accessibility can be interpreted different ways. People say accessible as a term for many different things. How does Xbox Game Studios define accessibility?
For us, accessibility is very intentionally removing the barriers that prevent disabled people from being able to play games. And that, for us, is at its root. Like you said, there are other times that people use accessibility to mean other things like approachability. And for us, like, nope, we will use the word approachability for that. For us, accessibility is specifically about enabling our disabled players to be able to play games.
Do you think it helps if we start using that vernacular more to kind of like keep things separate, accessible versus approachable?
I think that would make a massive difference, because we've already seen a few times in media that someone has said accessible when they meant approachable, and it's really just resulted in disabled gamers getting really frustrated when a game comes out that they heard would be accessible when the developer truly meant approachable. So you're kind of getting this difference of expectation versus reality that just lets gamers down when you kind of use a single catch-all phrase for both.
Okay, yeah. I think that's something that my crew and I are going to try and keep up with, because we're always super particular about the words that we use and the language and the terms and things like that. And it was definitely a question I wanted to know, because we want to be helpful, right? We don't want to put people and steer them in the wrong direction when we're trying to be helpful, right? Yeah.
And for those who want sort of like an example of when media sort of has said accessible but meaning approachable, was when Elden Ring came out. A lot of people were saying that was a very accessible game. And in reality, okay, there were definitely some things that can definitely help those who are disabled. I know, like, our mutual friend Grant Stoner was able to play it, and he loves Elden Ring a lot, but like myself, I couldn't play it. So in a sense, a lot of people were sort of basically combining or have it using accessibility or accessible when it meant approachable, because in reality it was like Elden Ring was a lot more approachable compared to previous sort of Souls-like games. And so that if you wanted to know that kind of an example, that was sort of the what we kind of like see the difference between the two is important.
With you now being in the mix, working with Xbox, doing all of these things to make sure that accessibility is part of the game plan from the get-go, how has the development cycle changed for games since this has become a core pillar for you guys being committed to accessibility?
The biggest thing is it's shifted when we start talking about accessibility and our disabled players. So for years in game dev, it was really common to go fully build out your game and then at the end kind of see where the holes in terms of accessibility were, and then kind of add like band-aids on top to like fix it. So you'd get the game made, and then you would start adding options in at the end to make up for decisions made earlier that were inaccessible. Now, because of this investment in accessibility, we're bringing accessibility up in pre-production, sometimes even in concept, so we can avoid making decisions that create those, barriers for gamers with disabilities completely. Like a very, very basic example is, it used to be you would make your video game, you would make your UI, and then you may be like, oops, that's not colorblind friendly, and then you would tack on a colorblind mode. Where now our developers are being much more intentional about, hey, we will just make sure that nothing is told to you by color alone, and you build that UI once, and now you don't have to add on this colorblind mode at the very end because you were intentional about being colorblind friendly earlier in development. And that kind of the term that we use at Microsoft is like that shifting left of accessibility, is really making the impact, in that it's making accessibility easier, and it's just generating better products overall because it's not an afterthought anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting too, especially since like one of the team members on the podcast works in UI at Ubisoft and things like that. And now thinking about that stuff, even for myself and some of the things we do in app development and radio and things like that, like it's fascinating to think now that you have to take it at the ground level to really make sure that all the assets are there and ready to go so that everybody can play games. One of the things that was very interesting to me too over the past few years was the adaptive controller that was released. Within Xbox Game Studios, are there desires for developers to design features around this controller other than just an alternative input method?
So under the hood, the adaptive controller is actually just an Elite controller. Like, it is completely the same. The game doesn't really know the difference.
Okay.
So what we really recommend that people do is, if you can put remappable controls in your game, that makes the Xbox adaptive controller so much more powerful. Like, yes, on the adaptive controller side, the person does have the ability to like physically remap the various inputs, and that's one of the glories behind the Xbox adaptive controller. But it's so much easier for players with mobility needs who are using the adaptive controller to just be able to remap it in game instead of like physically altering their layout. So doing remappable controls, but also kind of thinking about if you have a hold in game, like, oh, hold this, like hold to aim, like, does that really need to be a hold? Could that be a toggle? Like, how can we reduce the strain for our gamers with disabilities in terms of these inputs? So that's really what it's been about. Like, you don't have to do anything particularly special for the adaptive controller because it's just a controller.
Oh, interesting. Okay, great. Another feature that seems to be popping up more that I'm noticing a lot more is the prompt at the beginning of the game before you even start anything, the accessibility options. And I always go through and see and cherry pick what I think might actually make my gameplay better. I'll go through and turn on the closed captions. I'll make sure that it has like the names so I know what character is speaking, because it takes me forever to learn all the characters' names in any game, mostly because we're just playing them so fast. So yeah, is there a way, or do you guys track to see if these features are being used even outside of the accessibility, like for other folks, like seeing increased usage because now these features are there and people are using them just to make the game play better for them?
We definitely have data, nothing that I can share with you today, but it's okay because other game companies also have the data and have shared it. So shout out to David Tisserand at Ubisoft. So what we see is a lot of these features are not just used by people who identify as being disabled. So actually, like, a great story, and Ubisoft has plenty of stats out here, because mine aren't going to be exact. This is a summary. They were tracking for one of the Assassin's Creeds, how many people were using subtitles, and it was like 60 some odd % were using subtitles. I don't think 60 some odd % of the people playing Assassin's Creed are deaf or hard of hearing, right? So like, that shows how much it was getting used. And if you go look at their games now, they actually put the subtitles on by default. And it's, again, something really high, like 95+% of players just leave them on if you turn them on for them. So it shows that these get adopted by, people who don't identify as disabled. And a lot of the features that exist in games today, like remapping on keyboard, that has been around in PC games since the dawn of time. For gamers who need keyboard remapping, that's absolutely an accessibility feature. And a lot of time when I talk about remapping, I'm talking about it as an accessibility feature, but that has been around for forever as just a preference for PC users. So there is a ton of overlap of just features that are great for gamers and features that are critical for gamers with disabilities.
Yeah, because I will even say I think there's also another stat that like Naughty Dog had released in regards to Uncharted 4. I think it was like they said like over 9 million people access the accessibility menu within Uncharted 4, and that was actually a really amazing sort of stat just to kind of like to see that even back then when like accessibility wasn't fully kind of in the public eye at a certain point, to kind of see that like even then it was like it's ever since then it's been more easily adoptable. I basically I personally want to be able to see like to have like other studios basically release the information. We don't want to we just something that we could basically use to say like to anybody that says, oh, why are you adding accessibility for the less than 1% of players? I'm like, no, there are so many people that are using this. Why and I just want to slap that stat down and be like, see, it's not just 1%.
Yeah, we talk about it in the Girls on Games podcast all the time because, like, I'm not going to lie, I have spent a lot of time in front of very loud speakers at metal shows. So, like, having that little feature is like it just turned on automatically for me too. Like, I don't have to go hunting for it is phenomenal. And then sometimes like the ability to have auto aim or aim assist of any kind, because I've talked about so many times how terrible I am in playing first person shooters. Just like I'm garbage. So to be able to just make it through a game and to know that this is available to make it easier for other folks to play games who don't have the same capabilities that I do. I think it's so important. Because, there's no better way to connect with somebody. How many people have, especially during COVID, how many people have I been able to, play games with that I haven't been able to see in person? So, just gives them the capabilities to be able to play a game and enjoy pastime that I love and they love together. Yeah. All right. That pretty much wraps up the questions that I have getting into the weeds. But I do, and I'm very curious, because this is more, I guess, yours, Tara and Steve, your wheelhouse, really and truly, about the games that are accessible. Because like I said, I'm not actively looking for these things, but definitely benefit from all the features that are available. So Steve, take it away. Let's get through some of the games that are actually kind of have accessibility in the forefront.
Yeah, so I wanted to. One of the questions I have, Tara, is in regards to obviously with the Xbox portfolio of games that are on Game Pass, and I wanted to sort of have you talk a little bit about the I guess the tags that are accessibility tags that are in the Xbox store, so that players can be able to find these games so that they can be able to play. Can you talk a little bit about that system, and then what sort of things that are tagged that essentially that players can be able to look for when they're looking for a game on Xbox or just on Game Pass in general to find accessibility that fits for them?
Yeah, of course. So obviously one of the biggest challenges of being a gamer with disabilities is knowing if you can play the game. And there isn't always a lot of information out about the title for you to know if it has the features that you need. Like if you are someone who absolutely needs remappable controls, you may not know that until you get the game. And what the goal of the tags is for the games to be labeled in a way so that you understand that they have certain features that you may need, but also that they meet a certain quality bar. So for example, it's one thing for a game to say it has subtitles, but do the subtitles always have good contrast with the background? Are they actually large enough for you to be able to read them? Do they label who the speaker is? There's a difference between, yes, I've met the tick box of yes, I have subtitles versus like people actually being able to use your subtitles, right? So the tags are ones that were like, yes, they've met this really high standard for being great accessibility features. And you can look for ones that have, do they have great text size? Do they offer various input methods? Do they have subtitles? There's a whole list, and you're actually able to go and look it up online, but you can find them, on the store in the Game Pass app. So if you're like, hey, I know that I need a game that supports high contrast, you can look through by the high contrast tag.
I love that. So I know this is probably going to be either your favorite part of the show or not. But I'm going to allow you to be able to brag about your babies. And I want you to tell us what are some of the games that you are proud of, or that basically that have a lot of accessibility that you've produced or helped sort of shepherd into for Xbox that people could be able to play right now.
So 2 that are available that I absolutely adore. So Forza Horizon 5 was my first one that I got to ship as the lead. And it is definitely my baby. That started with a workshop that I hosted in 2019. And then the team over at Playground, who, let's be clear, did the real work here. I just showed up with like a PowerPoint presentation and a friend. I sent some emails, whatever. I reviewed a design. But that has tons of amazing accessibility features for just about many, many different types of gamers. So it's got the American Sign Language and British Sign Language that we talked about. It has tons of different options for, card control, for your button inputs. It's not perfect in terms of accessibility, but it is definitely the most accessible Forza Horizon game that we've ever shipped, and I'm incredibly proud of that. But I also have a special place in my heart for Pentiment, which I know that not everyone in the accessibility community loves. Yes, I'm talking to you, Ian.
Yeah, Ian, shut up.
Yeah, Ian. But there was tons of investment by the team to be able to make a game that a lot of people can enjoy. And one of the features that is in there that I don't think a lot of people realize, if you go to the accessibility menu, there's actually an option where you can have a kind of like AI generated synthesized voice will actually read all of the dialogue to you. So you can have all of the little dialogue bubbles just read out loud if you don't want to read it yourself. And then it also has the different font options, because as beautiful as that medieval calligraphy font is, a lot of people are like, wow, that is hard to read. And just knowing like, oh yeah, you want to turn that off and use simple font? Absolutely fine, no problem.
That is also something that I'm like, I like about the King, because I'm like, I also can't read the fancy fonts. And that's like, I love reading, and I'm just like, I feel so sad because I'm like, I can't read this beautiful calligraphy because it looks gorgeous, and yet I can't, like, what is that, an R or is that an N? I don't know.
The text to speech and speech to text stuff is great though. Like, or to be able to use that too to just augment, the making sure you're understanding what's going on and stuff. Like, I love that feature.
Yeah, me too. And actually that is something I need to I'm a bad accessibility friend, because I did not know that AI synthesized voice was in Pentiment. So I need to go back in and play it now.
You're not the only one who didn't know that. Like, it's literally the reason I
okay.
called it out was because literally, like, last week I was talking to someone who's just like, oh, I wish it did this. And I'm like, it does do that. It's right here. They're like, oh, I never used it. And I'm like, no, that's literally the feature you're asking about. It's right there.
So, okay, well, that actually brings up a question that I know that it sort of has been a topic of conversation, at least in the accessibility community lately. And this is something that even Leah, you kind of touched on, was in regards to just finding out these features, or seeing these features kind of at the forefront. And that's being with the amount of games that are being released that have a ton of options that are available. But then also as well, like, just with like people sort of maybe not necessarily looking at an accessibility menu and seeing and because they may not think that there's options that are in there that could help them. What is sort of like your thoughts on should we have an accessibility menu in games, or because we always like to talk about how options are like all options are accessibility. What where do you kind of see that? Like what are your thoughts on that? And obviously, they're not asking in sort of like, and this is a stance from Xbox in general, but just as someone within the accessibility community, what are your sort of thoughts on, should we have an accessibility menu, or should it be just kind of part of all the menus?
This is like a hot topic that's absolutely fascinating. And because the real question is, how do we handle user expectations on where information should be? We're at a place where we don't have any standard on whether or not there should or should not be an accessibility menu. But as Steve mentioned, a bunch of things that we don't label as accessibility can be a accessibility feature to someone. And especially when you have a game that has a lot of different options, how do you onboard someone to make sure that they see things that may be relevant to them right off the bat? Because if you have like 70 different accessibility options, like some games have nowadays, how do you not overwhelm the player? So it has been, an incredibly interesting time. What I've had studios do today, and I don't think this is the long-term plan, but it suits today's needs, is doubling stuff up, which is also a lot of work. But it's basically identifying the things that we now have gamers who are brand new to gaming, truly, because of accessibility features we've only been seeing in the last few years. And they know key features that they need to be able to play a game. And if it's not presented to them in accessibility menu, they may incorrectly assume that a game hasn't invested in accessibility because they don't see accessibility menu. But so how do we make sure for these newer players who need very specific things that they know where these options are that they need, but also balance that with literally anything could be an accessibility feature. So yeah, right. I've been having some of my devs kind of double up key options, but I don't think that's the right way to go long term. And I really think we need a lot more user research to really define the best way to organize all of these options and the best way to present them to players so that they know they can play and the options they need are somewhere in the menu. You even see games today, like some of them have like a search bar, which would be great if we were better as an industry of using the same terminology across games, which we're not consistent. Yeah, so it's
because what does chromatic aberration even mean? I don't understand it.
Even just trying to figure out a search algorithm is hard. So making it work properly.
So it's a very interesting problem space that we need more research on. It's a fun problem. These are the things I get to think about at work, and I'm like, oh man, the possibilities. But yeah, so sorry, that was a non-answer that I hope you at least found interesting.
No. And that's because you're right. It's because it kind of comes down to what you were sort of saying earlier, or what we were talking about earlier, was that because it is hard to even know that these options even exist. It's it'd be great this game had it, and yeah, it's in there, and they're like, wait, what? And that is kind of something that is very interesting. And you're right, there definitely needs to be, and there is research being done in this field. Okay, is that kind of thing being needed as an accessibility menu, or can it be in other options menus? So I'm very curious to be able to kind of see when that research it would be published. But I think you're right. It's just with the amount of accessibility that's being added to games, it's been great. But also I forget that there's sometimes even there, and I review games for accessibility, so I feel sad now that I have not known that Pentiment has had this speech, the screen reader all along, and now I'm now I can actually go back and play it, and I feel so great. I can play Pentiment now.
That's why I like that setup, when you're first presented a game now, when you turn it on, I feel like that was almost normal for you to make sure that your screen resolution and the box fit in the screen, and then making sure that the grays and the blacks and the whites work within it. And now just adding that as part of the process in the initial setup, just you're not wading through it and stumbling and trying to figure it out as you're playing the game. You're presented with it right off the bat so that you start on the right foot. Have you guys gotten feedback if that's been better for people?
That has absolutely been better. So
yes.
in the past, as an industry, we were not great, and we made some mistakes. For example, it'd be really common for you to launch into click new game, go into a cinematic, but never have had the options to turn subtitles on. And so now the entire intro movie, you have no idea what's happening because there's no subtitles. And then you actually get in game, and then you can go to the options, and then you can turn the subtitles on, but you've missed this entire front cinematic. Like that, there are real examples of that happening. And, you know, there are some games, like if you are someone who has no sight, who has to have a screen reader on, if we don't allow you to turn that screen reader on, like at the beginning, how do you get to settings to turn the screen reader on if you don't even know where you are in the menu? So like some of these, like if you do not present them, you know, in that first time user setup, like you literally will not be able to find them to turn them on to play. You're just blocked from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm at least glad that like most games now, I think like probably about 90% of games don't have those that cold open sort of like jump into the game right away, where you do have the option to be able to at least go into the options menu before you even start the game, which is really nice and very appreciative. Because I mean, I get it. It's like when you have a cold open, and especially like in a movie, TV show, it's fun because you can sort of jump into the action right away, and then it's like all of a sudden like you have this high octane moment and then title screen, it's like, oh, this is so cool. But like in video games, yeah, no, like when you can't even just change options like that you need to be able to play, that's a little different, and it's a little difficult to just to play. So yeah, but I want to jump into something that was in regards to like sort of the future of accessibility at Xbox. Obviously one of the games that was just talked about and just sort of announced with this feature that is coming, speaking of Forza, is the blind drive assist for Forza Motorsport. So Tara, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what is blind drive assist, and what is that like? How does that sort of push Forza Motorsport further into like in accessibility?
This is the thing I'm most excited about. I know this is not the question you asked me, but I'm going to start with, like, this was something that we started talking about years ago. You can actually go back, and there's a talk that John Knowles did at the Game Accessibility Conference in 2019, where he talks about and mentions for the first time, just kind of casually on a slide, we're going to research potential solutions so that one day someone without sight can drive a car in Forza. And that was actually the first time we mentioned it. Like, we didn't hide that this was something we were going to invest in. Like, we said it publicly. John did at this talk. And so, you know, the design team was tooling around with a whole bunch of different ideas. And, you know, we ended up bringing in Brandon Cole to do some consulting. A couple other people as well were there. I believe I have a picture of Steve Saylor in the Turn 10 office.
That is true. Yes, I do it like I was there. I got to play a little bit of it.
But it ended up being a system that is part rally car co-pilot. So someone basically telling you, you know, this is the turn up ahead, how strong it is, left or right, that sort of deal. And then kind of like your parking assist that like beeps when you get close to something, it beeps as you get close to the turn. And then there are also sounds that pan according to the driving line to let you know, are you on the driving line? Should you be more left? Should you be more right? And all of these different features together are what help people without sight be able to get around the track. But what's great is, you know, they're all independently toggleable, so you are able to just use what you need, and which also means that other people might get to use them as well. Like, we actually had at an inclusive design workshop back for Forza Horizon, the same one that came up with the ASL BSL, one of our participants, like, he specifically called out, he's also a gamer with low vision, Matt, if you're listening, that he would love just to have like a rally car shout out, and like that's in there now. So it's, I don't know, for me it's just really exciting that this was like years of ideas and input from like so many people that got to come together, and then, you know, with, you know, consultants and, you know, a lot of work from the team, and shout out to our user research partners. Here it is, it's there. You guys got to, I can talk about it.
I know, and that's the thing too. So, kind of a little bit of sort of my experience, because yes, as Tara said, I did get a chance to try it out for the first time. I was at Turn 10 Studios last year, and I got to try this for the first time. And here's the thing that was really cool about Blind Drive Assist, and something that I didn't even really think about until I actually got to sit down and play, because Tara was very secretive on what, like, she did not tell me what it was I was going to be trying out. She just was like, okay, we're gonna do a tour of Turn 10. I was like, oh cool, I get to see all the fancy cars in the lobby. That's cool. But it was what I realized when I sort of jumped into playing, and I had all those assists on, where it sort of told me when I was sort of going into a turn, when I was into the apex of a turn and getting out of a turn, and then like knowing when to brake and knowing when to accelerate and what turn was coming up. All of that combined is something, like, it was something that I realized, oh yeah, like, as a blind person, I don't know what it's like to drive a car. I've been a passenger in many cars in my entire life, but I've never been a driver in the car. I will say I did that once. There is a video on my YouTube channel where I have done that once, but it was in a parking lot where I basically just drove in a straight line, and that was basically it. But it's like, I don't know how do I use my feet? What do I do when I'm switching between accelerate and brake? Or how do I do I switch gears? What does that work? How does that, do I do turn signals in this thing? Or I don't know what it's like. But so it not only is Blind Drive Assist kind of like an interesting way to be able to educate at least blind drivers how to be able to navigate a course, but in a way that it fulfills that fantasy element of video games provides. Yes, we will never be able to be the God of War or the Master Chief of that is going to defend Earth from aliens. I will never be able to do that in my lifetime. And one of the things I will be able to do is I can be able to race a car in an actual race, and I can be able to do that in Forza, and I can't wait for players to be able to jump in and play this, because yes, a blind person will be able to go into an actual race with a car, and it's like a fancy car. It's a fast car, and you get to do that and not only be able to stay on the road, but actually be competitive in a race too. And so I'm really excited for that to come out, and thanks, Tara, for letting me to try that out and provide feedback on it. That was really cool.
No, I think the funnest part of that experience, by that point, we had been cranking on it for a while. So, after a lot of research, it was in engineering with the team for over 2 years, and we were pretty far into the process when we actually got to have Steve look at it. But for us, we're all sitting behind him. He can't see any of us. He has the headphones on, and he can't hear us. And we are literally as his lap times are decreasing, as he's hitting these S turns, we're like, woo, yeah! We're all cheering. He has no idea. He can't hear us. He can't see us. We're going absolutely, bonkers behind him, because I
had no idea if they were bored or if they were happy, or they were just kind of chatting along while I'm just sort of just playing by myself, because I had these really fancy studio headphones on, and I'm just focused on the race, and I'm trying to do my best, because I want to try to be able to to show off a bit and be like, okay, I can do this is great. I had zero idea that they were cheering in the background, because that's how good those headphones were.
Well, you were in the audio director's room, because it's an audio based feature, so we needed to give you that prime experience. And really, Blind Drive Assist is a labor of love from our audio team. Obviously there were more than just the audio team that did the work, but so much of it came from their drive and their passion. And shout out specifically to Neha, who's the accessibility producer at Turn 10, who really drove this. I'm here talking to you about it, but Neha and the people that she worked with are the people who were working on this every day to get features out like that. So I just want to say, I love you guys. Turn 10, you're amazing.
Yeah, definitely shout out to the folks at Turn 10 and Xbox Accessibility, and then also the other consultants like Brandon Cole, as you said, for helping to kind of make this sort of happen. And I can't wait for players to be able to jump in and play this and try it out, and because I'm also curious to see like what people's setups are going to be for this too, with the accessibility in that, and then it's sort of like, okay, what did this person do as customization? Like, what did they turn on? What all that stuff. So I'm really excited to see that, because I think it'll definitely be, that's the thing too, is that it's not even just going to be like here's a one size sort of fits all. It's like a fully customizable thing, which is going to be really, really cool for people to be able to try out. So yeah, I love it.
And that's just a part of the accessibility that's coming out in that game.
Yes,
so,
exactly. So, so with that being that this is sort of a Global Accessibility Awareness Day, like as someone who's in the space and who works at Xbox, I want to thank you personally for all the work that you do, and we get to celebrate accessibility today, and I know that I thank you for helping making it so that it's exciting for me as an Xbox fan that I can actually be able to play those games. So, Tara, thank you for everything that you do.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Leah, did you have any other questions for Tara or even, myself, or about anything in particular? Or
no, I think we've covered everything. I'm just so fascinated by everything that you do, Tara, and what the team does. I'm so grateful that I can play with friends that have not been able to play with before and enjoy this fantastic passion together. And, the reason I got to meet Steve is because I saw one of his accessibility videos. This is, like, we had met before briefly, but, like, on other stuff, but then we really connected at that point. And the fact that now I've essentially built a lifelong friendship now with somebody who I won't get to enjoy my passion with. It's awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us to talk through this today. And I'm really excited to learn more and see more as time goes on, because I'm sure this is just going to continue to grow and offer capabilities for all different people to be able to play games together.
I mean, that's the goal. When everybody plays together, we all win.
So true.
And on that note, I think that's a pretty great way to end this episode. But Tara, if we want to be able to follow you online and keep up with the work that you do, but also as well in regards to all the work that you do for GA Conf, where can people be able to find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Lady Au Pair, which is LADIEAUPAIR. Yes, it's a Venture Brothers reference. Yes, I'm excited for the movie, for the two people that heard this podcast and asked.
Love it. Perfect. Well, everyone, make sure to be able to also follow us on socials. Leah, where can we be able to find you online?
I am Leah Jewer on most social media platforms, but of course you can hear me on my weekly podcast, the Girls on Games podcast. And give us send me notes on recommendations on games to play. Yeah.
Speaking of which, you can also be able to follow me on social media as well at Steve Saylor, or on pretty much all platforms except for Twitch, which is twitch.tv/BlindGamerSteve. And also, you can be able to, for this podcast, make sure to subscribe to the podcast where all podcasts are, including my YouTube channel, which is at Steve Saylor, for the video version of the podcast. If you like what you heard, please give us a rating on your platform of choice, or a review, either or. It'll definitely help us out and so the algorithm that is the podcast stores, whether it's on Apple or on Spotify or on iHeartRadio. We'd love to be able to also read your thoughts if you have any questions about the topic that we talked about today, accessibility, or also just our thoughts on Xbox and Game Pass in general. You can also let us know on socials as well, YouTube or other podcast platforms, and let us also know what is your favorite Game Pass game, because we want to be able to shout them out on the show as well, especially be able to check out ones that we haven't been able to check out out, because that's the beauty. That's just the theme of the show. We want to be able to tell you about great games that are available on Game Pass, and if you have one that's sort of like a hidden gem that not a lot of people are talking about, we want to talk about that on this show. So definitely let us know. Lastly, you can share the show with your friends on the or in your gaming party, or just in general, and to help spread the word about the show. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. Until next time, as Tara said earlier, when everybody plays, we all win. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.